Welcome back. I'll be using this beautiful crepe fabric for the jumpsuit, and it's 3 yards. So I went ahead to spread my fabric, and I'll go ahead to mark out the distance that I want the length of the down part, which is 45. So the next thing I did was just to mark or measure the distance that I want the gathers to stop, and I'll go ahead to cut it out, and it's 18 inches. I've gone ahead and cutting it out, and the distance that I use is my hip measurement for the waist, and I'm going to add extra 4 inch and ½ inch for ease allowance. So my crotch length, which is 12 inch, I'm going to add extra 3 inches, and I will extend the line like so. And the distance, whatever I have here, which is 16 inches, I'm going to connect it on that line, and I'll just connect the line like so. The next thing I'm going to do is to go up by 3 inches above the new crotch line, and I'm going to curve to meet the crotch extension. At the down part of my pants, I'll go in to mark 16 inches. I'll go ahead to mark. Then when I get to the end part, I'm going to curve from that crotch area. The next thing I do is to go down by 1 inch and create a slant on that part. Okay, so that's just it, guys. So we'll go ahead and cutting this out. So I'll set this aside to cut the back pant. So what I did was just to place the front pant on my fabric, and I will mark 3 inches extension for the back, and I'll come up by 2 inches on that part, and I'll connect it on the side of the front where the side front stop. I'm going to connect it on that end. Just watch closely to see how I did this. I just curve like you see me doing on this part, and when it comes to that crotch area, I went in by ½ inch. So I just want to zoom it up to show you what we had here. So what I did there was 1.5, not 2 inches, sorry, and I came down by 3 inches on that part, and I curve like you see me doing right now. It's just easy, so just watch closer if you don't see the chalk wall. So I also go ahead to mark in 1 inch straight down till I get to the down part of my pants, and I will cut that out. I went ahead and added 1 inch on this part for my zip allowance, and the length I just eyeball it there to closely 8 inches, and I'll just go ahead to cut this out. After I was done, this is what I have. So the next thing I'm going to do is to create the pockets, to mark the line for the pockets, guys. So what I did was just to mark out the ½ inch, and I'll also mark 1.5 on that end. And from that end, I'm going to mark 6.5. You can use 6.5, you can use 6. I'll be working with 6 inches, so I'll just go ahead to notch that side, front, and back pants. So the next thing I'm going to do is to work with the front fabric, and the material that I have won't go round if I'm to cut direct. So I went with a pattern paper. I cut my shoulder measurements, measure my armhole measurements, and 1 inch for my slope. I'll just go ahead to connect that line like so, mark in 3.5 on that end, and connect my slope. So I also go ahead to measure the distance from my shoulder and mark in my bust measurement, and I'll connect the line like you see me doing. So I'll go ahead to mark my under bust and my waist measurements. So afterwards, I'm going to go ahead to do the same on the other side, and I'll just go ahead to connect those lines together. So from here, I'm going to mark my bust darts, and I go in with 4 inches, and I'll go ahead to mark ½ inch on both sides like so, on the under bust and the waist. And I also, from that bust point, I'm going to connect the line like so. So that depends what your bust point is, just connect it on that end. In creating my princess darts, I'll go 3 inch above my chest line, and I'll mark ½ inch in between, and I'll connect like you see me doing on that end. And this will be for my princess darts, and I'll just curve that line from that end, and I'll also curve like you see me doing For my v-neck, I went in with 10.5, and I'm going to curve from the shoulder down like so. And I'll just go ahead to place my body measurement. I'll add 1 inch for sewing allowance and 1 inch that allowance. And from my neck, I mark in 2.5, and from my armhole, I mark in 1/2 inch, and I'll connect like so. So I'll be sure that I'm comfortable with what I have, and from that princess that I'll measure the darts that I have intake and see if there's any shortage, and I'll go ahead to cut this out. For my back, I'll go ahead to mark my shoulder, and I'll put my 1 inch for slope, and I'm going to mark the distance of my armhole, and I'm going to mark the 3.5 that we did earlier, curve like so. Mark the distance to connect with the shoulder from the chest line, and I'll mark in my waist measurement, and I'll also do the same thing on this part, marking my waist measurement, and I'll connect like so. I'll go ahead to mark my waist measurement, and I'm also going to put the dart of 4 inch on that end, and I'll mark from 10 inches, and also go ahead to mark in the 1/2 inch dart allowance on both sides, and I'll connect to meet the 10 inch that I marked earlier. So I'll add in that 1 inch dart, and also go ahead to put in the measurement plus 1 inch dart like so. And the next thing I'm going to do is to place this to get that 1/2 inch that we took off, and this is the distance where I want my back to stop, so that was why I marked it like so. I'll go in by 1/2 inch on my actual measurement, and I'll come in by 1/2 inch on that end, and I'll connect, and that will be my new zip allowance. So the next thing I'm going to do is to go up by 1/2 inch on that end and connect like so. I also mark this part straight because I want it snatched on that back side, and I'll go ahead to cut it out. So I used a solo tape to tape this down because I wanted one piece for my back side, and this is what I have for the front and the back. I've gone ahead to cut that out on a fabric, and I'll just show you guys how we're gonna join this on together. So what I did was just to place this like so, pin them down, and I'm going to sew straight down. After I was done, this is what I have. I'll place my front pants right side facing each other, and I'm going to pin down and sew straight down like so. I'll go ahead to make a loose stitch on the waist of the pants, and also do the same thing that I did to the front of my pants. I'll do the same thing. I'll just sew that part, but I'll leave the zip allowance. I'll go ahead and notch where the zip will sit, so I will not gather that part, and I'll go ahead to gather. After I was done gathering, I brought the front top of my jumpsuit. I'm going to place it like so. I will pin down, and afterwards I'm going to sew a straight stitch like you see me doing. I'll do the same thing to the back side of my pants like you see me doing, and I'm going to pin it down, and I'll sew straight down. In creating my pocket, I'll fold my fabric like so, and I'll fold again. Then I'll mark that 6 inches that I did mark on the trouser pants. I'm going to curve like so, just curve or make a block shape depending on how you want it. I'll go ahead to cut it out like so, and this is what I have. And I'll go ahead to place it on my jumpsuit front and back that we've already joined, and I'll sew like so. And this is after I was done sewing. I've pinned this down, and I've already fixed my zip to the jumpsuit, and this is the 1 inch allowance that we gave while we were cutting the pattern. I will join it with that 1 inch, and from the pocket I will sew with 1/2 inch round till you get to that point, and I will still go in with the 1 inch allowance that I gave. After I was done joining, this is what I have now, and I'm just trying to show you guys how far we've gone. I've joined everything, both the other side, I've joined it, and I'm going to use this bias. Why I brought that blue bias is because the black I have won't be enough, so I'm going to use the blue bias like to join this, and this is what I have after I was done taping it up like so. This is looking clean right now, and I went in to notch that part to create a V illusion on that end, and this is what we have for now. And I've gone ahead to fold my down pants, and I went in to take the measurements that we have. What I have here is just 2 inches. So I'll cut two pieces of 5 inches wide and 15 inches long. I'm going to fold like you see me doing right now. I'm going to fold it like so, and I'll stitch this part like so and so straight down. Let me show you. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to flip this out and fold this part inward and stitch like so. So afterwards, I'll go ahead to stitch that part. I'll do the same thing for the other parts, and we are almost done with this video. And if this video was helpful, please do well to leave a comment and give me a thumbs up. And this is what we have here after we're done. This is looking so pretty, so clean. Like I wanted to have a clean finish, and this is what it's giving me at this point. I'm liking this jumpsuit, and it's something I will make more. This is where we stitch. Like I said, I did it for the two parts, and this is what we have guys for the jumpsuit. And if you enjoyed this tutorial, please do wait to subscribe if you've not, and turn off your notification bell so you know when I post new video. And I will see you in my next one. Bye guys.